Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another video here on the SSA Philosophy channel, where we, of course, dive right on into the philosophy of our characters from video games to TV shows to movies, etc., etc. So, of course, in today's video, we're going to go over the philosophy of the character known as Rambo. So, as always, without any further ado, let us go right on ahead and let us get started. So, John Rambo, a name that is synonymous with raw power and battlefield prowess. Really, he's anything but really a one dimensional action hero. Of course, introduced in the 1982 film known as First Blood, Rambo is a complex character haunted by the ghosts of the Vietnam War. So really, prior to the war, Rambo was a Green Beret, who really overall they were like elite soldiers, elite soldiers, decorated, and really he was like say decorated, for his bravery, and the thing is, we learn little, about his early life, but it is evident that he did, of course, excel, in the military, becoming a ruthless and efficient killing machine. And the jungles of Vietnam, pretty much became like say his proving ground, where he really thrived under the pressure and led his comrades, through hell. However, though this wartime experience it came at a heavy cost. So really the horrors of war, really it left Rambo deeply scarred because he witnessed the deaths of his friends, endured unimaginable torture as a prisoner of war known as POW, abbreviated for short, and also he grappled with really grappled with the psychological trauma, of those experiences. And really discharged and struggling to reintegrate into civilian life. Rambo really is a ticking time bomb, really, in the film itself. So really into Hope, a small American town that serves as really like say this microcosm of the disconnect between the veterans and society. Now see Rambo, seeking solace and a connection to his past, arrives in Hope searching for a fellow soldier. The town though, however, though, views him with suspicion. A hulking drifter with a dark past, a seemingly innocuous misunderstanding with a local sheriff. Really, it escalates into a violent confrontation, triggering his PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder, and also propelling him into a desperate fight for survival. So really, Rambo, like really, his true strength, really, it lies in his resourcefulness and survival skills. Honed during his special forces training and amplified by his years in the unforgiving Vietnamese jungles. So really, Rambo is a master of his environment because he can build traps, navigate treacherous terrain, and turn everyday objects into deadly weapons. And really, this expertise, really, it allows him to elude capture and really become a one-man wrecking crew against the local police force. But the thing about Rambo is he's more than really just say, the muscle and survival instincts. But really he is haunted by the ghost of war. Flashbacks, plague him, transporting him back to the POW camps and the brutality that he endured. And really he craves a return, to the camaraderie that he shared with his brothers in arms. A connection that he desperately seeks but fails to find in Hope. So really, despite his internal struggles, Rambo possesses really a strong moral compass because he doesn't kill indiscriminately. Because violence is a last resort for him. But really, he shows compassion for the innocent, particularly towards children. A stark contrast to the cold-blooded soldier that he was forced to become, during the war. So First Blood really is not just an action film. Now a lot of people in their minds think, see, the first movie of First Blood really as just an action film, but really I would say it's really more of a character study of a broken hero struggling to find his place in a world that seems to have really forgotten his sacrifices. Because Rambo's journey really is a potent exploration of PTSD, the challenges faced by returning veterans, and really the societal, disconnect that often leaves them, feeling alienated. And as the film progresses, we do find ourselves, both fearing and sympathizing with Rambo, who really is a complex and unforgettable character who really embodies the lasting scars of war. So, of course, with the introduction already out the way, we're going to go on ahead and focus into the philosophy, of course, of Rambo. So, really, this is what I like to call the broken man and the wild, a philosophy of Rambo and First Blood. So, first thing we're going to focus on, of course, in this case, is the scarred soul. So the thing about Rambo, he isn't defined by his biceps, but really he's defined by his trauma. You know, thing is that Vietnam isn't a backdrop, but really it's etched into his psyche because he craves peace, yet violence is his only language. Really, he's a weapon, yearning for, disarmament, like disarmament. And so yeah, so pretty much the town of Hope. So yeah, the town of Hope, it pretty much loomed in the distance, a beacon of, normalcy, one that he wasn't sure that he deserved. The simple desire, maybe like say for a cup of coffee and a taste of life before the deluge, really it propelled him, forward. It propelled him forward. But beneath that callous exterior, though, a flicker of hope remained. Could this town, could this slice of Americana offer solace, or will the ghost of his past rise up once more, turning this fragile hope to ash? So of course, while he's, trying to reach the diner, in the movie, the air hung heavy with, with suspicion. The locals, their eyes, filled with a distrust, born of ignorance. Really, they saw only a drifter, a potential threat. And Rambo, yearning for a sliver of understanding, was met with a cold shoulder. The frustration, a coiled viper within him stirred. And the casual dismissal, a stark contrast to the respect that he had once commanded, pretty much that he once commanded was really a fresh wound. So yet he persisted, so really a desperate need, for connection, a yearning to really shed the mantle of outsider, really had filled his actions. But the interaction with the sheriff, a man, who was wielding authority like a bludgeon, really sent him spiraling. And really, it's a misunderstanding, a perceived threat. And the world Rambo had fought to protect, seemed to crumble around him. And really, the carefully constructed facade really had shattered, revealing, the raw and wounded soldier beneath. So, really driven by a primal instinct, Rambo, he fled, not as a criminal, but really as a hunted animal. So, really, the lush forest, the forest surrounding Hope, once a battleground, became a sanctuary. And here his skills, honed in the crucible of war, became his shield. But really within the familiar embrace of the wilderness, a deeper struggle, yeah, really a deeper struggle had unfolded. The thing is, was he a monster as the townspeople believed, or was he a victim, forever haunted by a war that refused to end? And also another part I want to focus into on Rambo's philosophy is really nature's embrace versus society's scorn. So the untamed forest, really it becomes Rambo's sanctuary because he navigates its perils with ease, a stark contrast, to the stifling small town that triggers his descent. Society rejects him while nature accepts him, flaws and all. So really Rambo's time in the jungles of Vietnam, really it fostered a deep, communion with nature. The wilderness became his sanctuary, a place where his senses, were attuned, to the whispers of the wind and the language of the forest. So really here, he was Rambo, the survivor, Rambo, the skilled hunter, Rambo at one with his environment. And really nature, it offered Rambo a sense of belonging, a place, where his wartime experiences were not a source of alienation, but really a source of strength. And the vastness of the wilderness, it really mirrored the vastness of Rambo's trauma. The solitude, that soothed his, troubled soul. Really a dark contrast, to the overwhelming crowds and the suffocating bureaucracies of small town America. And really in the wild, Rambo could be himself, unburdened by society's expectations and judgments. So really when it came to returning to a society that celebrated peacetime, Rambo embodied the very antithesis of those ideals. Really his PTSD, really a badge of honor earned in the jungles of Southeast Asia it was misconstrued as mental instability. His honed survival skills were seen as aggression, and society focused on pursuing the American dream, had no place for a man perpetually haunted by the nightmares of war. So Rambo's experiences really had, irrevocably, altered him, because he spoke the language of war, not the language of suburbia. And really, this linguistic disconnect really it further ostracized him, leaving him, misunderstood and labeled as a savage. And society scorn, really, society scorn was really like a constant reminder, of the sacrifices that he had made, sacrifices that were seemingly forgotten or worse, deemed irrelevant. And really, this part, like this eternal conflict, really, it would explore, like really this internal conflict, that would be explored would really be like something that Rambo faces. So really torn between, really torn between, the solace of nature and the yearning for human connection. Rambo grapples with the question of where, he truly belongs. Because can a warrior find peace in a world that shuns him, and can society reconcile its image of the triumphant soldier with the broken man who returned? So really, there are some themes, really in this case that can be explored, when it comes to, first blood, and the themes that really can be explored are these, which are, PTSD, man versus nature, the alienation of the warrior, the burden of heroism, and also, so yeah, so really, when it comes down to post traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, really in this case, we pretty much explore, like pretty much explore the psychological impact of war on Rambo and really how society's lack of understanding really how it exasperates his condition. And then man versus nature. And the thing is, while Rambo, while he does, find solace in nature, you know, we have to pretty much explore, how societal pressures and expectations push him towards confrontation. And then when it comes to the alienation of the warrior, we had to delve into like the difficulty of reintegrating a soldier back into civilian life, highlighting the disconnect between the battlefield and the home front. And then when it comes to the burden of heroism, we have to explore the weight of expectation, that has been placed upon soldiers and really the sense of abandonment, felt when those expectations are not met. So really, by exploring these themes, this part right here really will paint a deeper portrait of John Rambo, a man caught between both worlds, two worlds, forever marked by war and forever yearning for a place to call home. And also another point we want to focus on in his philosophy is the poetry of brutality. So really Rambo, like his fighting style, really it is, balletic, a lethal dance honed by his experiences. So really his violence, while shocking, becomes a really really it becomes a tragic expression of his internal war. Because really it's a brutal poetry, really a lament, for lost innocence. So really Rambo, and like I said before, like he, really his solace it lies in the wilderness because really the verdant forests of Washington State become his haven. A place where his senses are attuned to the rustling, pretty much to the rustling leaves and the gurgling streams, and really this communion, with nature. Really, it stands in stark contrast to the sterile environments of the town and the military base. And really, in the wild, Rambo can rely on his instincts and survival skills, the very tools that kept them alive in the brutal jungles of Vietnam. And really, the natural world, it really offers a sense of belonging and purpose, a stark contrast to the alienation that he feels in society. And really, however, the thing about Rambo is that his time at war has left, indelible scars because the flashbacks that plague him are a constant reminder of the horrors that he witnessed and the comrades that he lost. And society, with its, regimented routines and expectations, fails to understand the depth of his trauma. And the sheriff and his deputies. Now, the sheriff and deputies in the movie, really, they represent, what they represent is a society that views Rambo with suspicion and fear, judging him solely on his gruff exterior and his nomadic lifestyle. And really, their attempts to enforce order only exasperate his sense of alienation. So really, the film, really the film portrays really a society that is really ill-equipped to deal with the psychological wounds of war. And then mental health services are absent. And Rambo's attempts to connect with his fellow veterans prove futile. So really, Rambo becomes a symbol really of the disconnect between those who fought and bled and the society that they protected. because around this time, especially like the Vietnam War was really a terrible war. I mean, it really was a war in where like those who chose to fight, and those who were forced to fight, because back at this time, there was a draft, and where if you got drafted to go fight over there, of course, you had no other choice. You had no other choice overall but to fight if you got automatically drafted. And honestly, I mean, this really is, something overall that I really don't like, honestly, about how, how veterans are treated when they came back from the war. For those who survived and got through this terrible and this traumatic war, like they didn't really get anything in return. Like there were no mental health services, they were absent. And then, they had no jobs waiting for them when they got back home. They didn't really get any help at all whatsoever. No kind of like, reparations, nothing. I mean, they didn't get nothing in return. All they really had in return was a uniform, or maybe like a bronze or a silver, maybe a gold star, maybe purple star, who knows? But that's all. But I mean, that's all they came back with. I mean, like really, what did they really get in return? What did they really overall get when they came back after fighting and serving in this awful war? And really just how society, how they treated their veterans. Honestly, I mean, really, it goes to show you, like, really, who are the real monsters? Like, who are the real scumbags? In this case, who are the real monsters and the real scumbags when it comes down to something like this? And really, the thing is, is that really, as Rambo, as he, the thing is that as Rambo is relentlessly pursued, by the authorities in the film, really the lines between nature and society, that they really they blur, because the forest, once a sanctuary, now it transforms into a battleground. Rambo's like guerrilla tactics, honed in the jungles of Vietnam, really they become a desperate attempt to resist the overwhelming force, really the overwhelming force of society's scorn. The final explosive confrontation becomes like a tragic culmination of the conflict between a man seeking solace in nature and a society that rejects him. So yeah, so really Rambo's story, really his story in First Blood, really it is about the cost of war and the societal neglect of veterans. And really it compels us to question the true meaning of heroism and the responsibility, society has towards those who bear the physical and psychological scars of war. And the film, it really leaves us pondering the fate of those who, like Rambo, find themselves, between the solace of nature's embrace and the harsh reality of society's scorn. And also another tenet we want to focus on Rambo's philosophy really is really the fragile hero. So really, despite his imposing physique, Rambo is a broken man because he yearns for connection. Evidenced by his tearful breakdown, and at the end of the movie. Because really his heroism is a double-edged sword. A burden that is born from a past that he can't escape. So really, his past, like his past in Vietnam is really a constant presence, really throughout the franchise itself, because we see flashbacks of brutal combats, torture, and the loss of comrades. And these experiences, really, they've left him emotionally scarred, because he struggles to connect with society, finding solace only in the wilderness, a place that mirrors his internal turmoil. And, traditionally, heroes are portrayed, like say, like heroes, traditionally, are portrayed as like invincible. However, though, Rambo is is demonstrated. I mean, really, he's really like say, is demonstrably, is fragile because he suffers from PTSD, the nightmares and the flashbacks, his outbursts and violence. Really, they're not signs of strength, but really the symptoms of a deeply troubled soul. And what this really challenges is this challenges the idea that a true hero is emotionless and impervious to pain. And also, not only that, but really, Rambo, I would say, embodies the disillusionment, of Vietnam veterans because he served his country, yet he's treated with suspicion and hostility upon returning. And like I said, the small town, that he enters, Hope, represents a society that has moved on and leaving its own veterans behind. And this raises questions about the responsibility that a nation has towards those who fought for it. And like I said, I'll say it once again, raises questions about the responsibility that a nation has towards those who fought for it. And also, the thing is, really, the film it blurs the lines between hero and villain because Rambo's initial actions they're peaceful, but the escalating conflict forces him back into the role of a deadly warrior because really he becomes a victim of circumstance, pushed to the edge by a system that fails to understand him. And also, the thing is that First Blood, like really First Blood, I would say offers a very complex hero because Rambo's heroism lies not in his physical prowess, but really in his resilience. Because despite his internal struggles, he still possesses this unwavering sense of survival and loyalty. Because he fights for his own sense of justice, even when it isolates him from society. And really, Rambo, like his story, really it is a meditation, on the cost of war and the fragility of the human spirit. Because he is a hero, but a broken one, forcing us to confront the complexities of heroism in a post-war world. And this part encourages us really to move up. I mean, pretty much to move beyond the simplistic, pretty much the simplistic notions of strength, and really to redefine, what it really means to be a hero in the face of trauma. And also another thing we want to focus on about Rambo's philosophy really is a symbol of a lost generation. So really Rambo, and like really so really Rambo, like his struggle reflects the plight, of many Vietnam veterans because and like I said, because they were drafted, sent to fight an unpopular war and then expected to seamlessly, reintegrate upon returning. Because the thing is society, I mean, they offered little support, for the mental and emotional wounds that they carried. And really Rambo, he becomes a symbol of this lost generation. A generation whose sacrifices were not even fully valued or whose experiences remain misunderstood. And really the Rambo archetype, really it extends beyond the character himself, but really he represents the countless veterans who have struggled to reintegrate into society. And the film serves, really it serves, like yeah, I mean, really all the films, they all serve as a stark reminder of the war's enduring legacy and the societal responsibility to support those who fought. So the thing is, when it comes to like, having to, further explore, really this part, of Rambo's philosophy, really it lays the groundwork for a deeper exploration of Rambo as a cultural icon. So really here are some avenues for further exploration. And those avenues are number one, the portrayal of PTSD in film and its evolution since First Blood. Number two, the societal cost of war and the responsibility to veterans. And number three, the legacy of the Vietnam War in American pop culture. So really by examining Rambo, through these lenses, we gain a richer understanding of the film's themes and its enduring relevance. And ladies and gentlemen, that overall is the conclusion of this video here today, of course. But really, overall, think about Rambo. And like I say, Rambo is more than just this muscle bound warrior. He's more than just like, say, an action movie character, but really, he's a complex character, really a reflection of war's enduring scars and the struggle for peace within a broken soul. And really, he's a testament, to the enduring power of nature, and really, he's a tragic symbol of a generation forever haunted, by the jungle's whispers. And so, yeah, so really in the first film, First Blood, Rambo isn't a villain, by any means. He's not a villain, but really he's a lost soul, seeking solace in a small town that embodies the America that he fought for. And then when he's treated with suspicion and hostility by a trigger happy sheriff, his suppressed trauma explodes. And the film doesn't really glorify violence, but really it portrays it as a horrifying consequence of war. And really Rambo, like his one man army act. Really, I would say his one man army act. Really, it's a desperate, lashing out. A plea to be understood. And then really the sequels, the sequels that escalate the conflict, placing Rambo in increasingly brutal, pretty much increasing and, placing him in increasing, like pretty much, the sequels that escalate the conflict, placing him in increasingly brutal situations. Really he becomes a weapon, that the government, pretty much he becomes a weapon that the government wields against, new enemies. A reluctant warrior forced back into the jungle. And each victory is tinged, with loss, reminding him of the comrades that he left behind. And the violence becomes more graphic, showcasing the true cost of war. So really, Rambo's internal struggle, it really intensifies because he yearns for peace, but possesses only the tools of war. He forms fleeting bonds, only to see them severed by violence. And then the world he once fought for seems indifferent to his plight. So really, he's a ticking time bomb, a reminder of a conflict that America wants to forget. And of course, in Rambo, in Last Blood, really it brings the character full circle because he seeks refuge. He seeks refuge on a ranch, a desperate attempt to build a family and find solace. However, though the past claws his way back, forcing him to unleash his inner warrior one last time. And this time, though vengeance isn't his sole motivator, because he fights to protect the surrogate family that he's built and a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. So really the film's ending, really it is ambiguous because, Rambo, gravely wounded, sits on his porch, a broken man, and really a montage of scenes, from the previous films, they play, showcasing his journey. And the final image shows him riding off on horseback, battered but unbroken. And really it is a defiant act, or really a journey towards a peaceful end. And really the answer is left open, to interpretation. So really Rambo, like he embodies the tragedy of war's lingering effects because he's a reminder of the human cost of conflict. The soldiers who returned, forever changed. Now, while he may be a fictional character, yes, he is a fictional character, but his struggles resonate with the experiences of countless veterans who have fought in this war. And really, the Rambo franchise, it may be filled with a lot of action sequences, but really its core is a powerful exploration of war's enduring scars. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of this video here today. And if, of course, and if you watched the video all the way to the very end, I appreciate you. I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. So, of course, don't forget to comment, to like, and of course, to subscribe for more explorations into the minds of into the minds of your favorite characters. And also hit the notification bell to stay updated on my latest videos because I will have more coming out very soon. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that is it here today. So I hope you all have a beautiful, blissful, and wonderful day. And always remember to always be smooth, to always be steady, and to always be aggressive. Peace.